Alright, well, I'm back on this project here. It's been a while since I've posted a video, but I finally got around to with some time on my hands so that I can go back and work on this project. And if you recall, and if you want to look at some past videos, this is a CubeX Duo. I managed to get my hands on a couple of them. This is one of them. I have another one under the table here that we're going to wait and see how this one turns out before we go any further on it. But if you remember on some past videos, I had tried, I basically gutted this thing out, put a new main board, controller, what else, power supply, took off all the proprietary stuff that just wasn't working, right? And I tried to update it up to more mainstream components where I can use mainstream filament instead of their proprietary stuff. Now, while I was printing, I was getting really rough. If you can see that, see the walls of it are just really rough, right? Size-wise, they're okay. When I checked out, and the top and the bottom are fine. It's just on the X and the Y sides, it's just offset. It's like it's under extruding, right? So I went and tried different, a lot of different settings, feed rates, temperature settings, you name it. And I went and rebuilt this, the X Carriage here, and as you can see, it was set up for, actually the factory setup was set up for 3, but this is the Duo, so it came with 2 of the extruder motors. And so you can see I rebuilt it because the bearings, the old bearings like this here on the sides, going back and forth was really rough. They were really shot. So I just went and rebuilt this whole thing. And I've been testing it with just one hot end and one extruder motor. Now, I keep getting the same results. I went from the different feed rates from 10 up to 60, no change. I mean, they're just all coming out like this, right? So I went and checked all the belts and the pulleys. Nothing is binding. Nothing was wrong. I thought maybe it was vibration. So and you can see some on the past videos. I put a brace going across here. I tried braces on the corners for like a truss effect and try to get rid of some of the vibration stuff. But no change. I mean, it's just consistently like this no matter what I've done. So that was a quick recap. What I'm going to try to do now, this is my train of thought. I was going to, because this is pretty heavy, right, for that X Carriage. It was tacking on a lot of weight when you figure all the stuff that was there, and even the Y. But at least the Y has 2 stepper motors, right, one on each side. But with the X, it was just that single one. So I was thinking, well, and you can see right now it's a direct drive, so I'm thinking I might switch over and convert this over to a Bowden tube, right? Mount the motors back here somewhere and do the Bowden tube thing and get rid of all this stuff. I mean, just really lighten the load, right? But what I was also thinking, with the feed coming through here, let me get you a close-up of what I did down here. So you can see I had taken this feed off of the motor here, and the more I looked at it, it was like I was thinking, well, maybe it's the feed, you know, going through these gears. Maybe they're just not consistent, you know, so I'm not getting a good consistent flow of filament through, and it makes it looks like it was under extruding or over extruding or whatever. Probably under extruding. When I noticed this, and it was like, man, this thing's pretty beefy, you know, big chunk of aluminum. And when you line everything up, you can see with the filament going through, it's like, well, there's no adjustability, there's no tension, spring rate, anything. It is what it is you're just jamming it through there, right? And when I took this one off of this motor, turned out it was actually missing a set screw. So this one motor was just, sometimes it would spin, sometimes it wouldn't. This one I took apart, the set screw was in, but it was really, really dirty on the knurled parts, right? So I cleaned it off, but I started thinking, you know what, I'm going to convert this over and use this other feed. This is just like the feed gears and everything off of these Ender 3s, right? Yeah, there's one, has the upgraded deal. These I haven't upgraded yet. I was going to, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to use those two upgrade kits, and I'm going to replace these big nasty things. So at least we'll have a good consistent flow. And what I want to do, these are the two things that I'm going to do next, right? But what I'm thinking, I'd like to isolate. I don't want to do them both at the same time, because then if it does start printing well, what was the fix? Was it the feed gears here, or was it because I switched over to a Bowden tube? You know, I don't know. So first, I think I have room here. This bracket comes off where the motor sits, and I think I'm going to redesign this part of the mount so that I can use these, position it somehow. Yeah, so it'll have the same, you know, the feed mechanism, but it'll be more like a direct drive, you know, going down in there. Then I'll try it. And what I'm hoping, I hope that works and I start getting some decent prints. Then I'll keep it a direct drive, you know, and then I know it's not a weight problem, it's, you know, nothing like that. Then I can actually go and try to use the dual hot ends, the dual extruders, one here, one here. But that's the plan. So I'm going to start out by trying to retrofit these motors down here along with the new stuff, and we'll see how that goes. If I get the same results as this, then I'm going to switch over and do the Bowden tube thing, have both motors mounted here on the rear. You know, you get my drift. Alright, so We have our feed going down. We have this new gearing. And if this will work, well, I'm going to have to mount it down here somehow. I know there's a mounting hole down here and one over here. I'm just going to drill it through and put a couple of screws in here, probably a couple of these, to hold it down in place. And we'll see if this works. That'd be great if it prints well. That means I won't have to convert it to a Bowden. I'm good either way. It's just kind of, I wanted a direct feed so that if I ever start doing some flexible filament, you know, printing with that stuff, then the direct feed does a little better. But I have no problem with Bowden tubes. I've had pretty good luck with these. I have 3 of those Enders. Ender 3 Pros that have been modified. And they print very well. So hopefully I'll add this one to the list. Let me finish mounting it and we'll give it a test run. Alright, so I'm doing a test print. You can see I got the new the feed in there. Had to re-level the bed. But time will tell. We'll let this finish off and we'll look how the sides of this piece looks. That'd be fantastic if this is the fix. Alright, looks like it has finished printing. So let me get this piece up. It doesn't look promising, I'll have to say. Yeah, look at that. This was even worse than before. I don't know if you can see all that. You can see the ridges. And here it looks like it just skipped some layers or something happened here. Yeah, oh, that's too bad. I had high hopes on that. Well, I was going to try some different filament. I know the stuff I was trying before is pretty old, and this, it's okay. I was just going to try it with some different filament and see if that made any difference, and when I tried to swap them out, now my hot end is clogged up, so I'll take this off, clean everything off, and we'll give it a shot with this other filament and see what it does before I go off and switch this over to a Bowden like I've been wanting to do, but we'll see. So while it's printing, hear that buzz? Hear that? So when it's moving in the X direction, it's very pronounced. Yeah, so I was about to sign off, but and end the video and save the rest of the stuff for a different video. But I started thinking about it, and I wanted to find out what noise, where the noise was coming from on the X-axis. And when I started feeling the motors, whenever this would move in the X direction, I could feel it vibrating, right? So I did have an extra motor. This extra motor was actually supposed to be an extruder motor, but I'm only running one. It was made for 2. And I swapped these out, and it is much quieter, and it looks like the print is coming out fairly decent. So I'll tune back in when this is done. Hopefully that will do the problem. When I switch this out, it looks like I need to tighten up this belt here a little more. But that belt over there is tight. This X belt is very tight. So yeah. So we'll take a look at it when the print is finished. Well, there she blows. Some of this is when I yanked it off the table. But this is much better. Much better. I'm glad to see this. It still has some ridges on it, but consider this is a 0.6 millimeter nozzle. So I'm going to switch back to the 0.4 and run it again. You can see how I think it is much better than what we're experiencing here. You can hear that. But this, okay, I think we're on to something here. I'm glad I switched this motor. So now we can start tweaking. Go back to a 0.4 millimeter nozzle and look at all the settings and everything and see if we can fine tune this thing. Alright, well, I had some major breakthroughs here. I still have these printers going on, so I apologize for the excess noise. I have one going on back here and these fans are still blowing. But I kept playing around with this, and you can see progressing through the video, I had changed the extruder motor. I had a set of motors that came off of an old printer bot. You can see that. I replaced the X-axis motor and the extruder motor. These old ones just didn't perform. And I switched over to this extruder feed. Now this pack, you can see it's this is the upgrade for an Ender 3 or Ender 3 Pro. Upgrading from the plastic over to the aluminum assembly, and that's what I did over here. And I was still running into problems. You can see how you can tell it's got to be an extruder problem, right? I kept thinking that, but still rough walled, and I tried to do a box that didn't have any fill or anything like that, so it's just straight going around, and maybe that would handle any kind of vibration problems, but it was still coming out rough, right? You can hear it. So I was going to just switch this out. The one I have here is identical to this, and I was going to order the dual feed, the dual pulley, and thinking, because when I started feeding it through, and I was calibrating everything to measure off the 50 millimeters and 100, and I started noticing that it was inconsistent each time. Every time I'd adjust it 10 millimeters at a time. Sometimes it would be 10, sometimes it would be 7, sometimes. So I was applying some pressure, and it took me, applying pressure to it to actually get a consistent feed. And that's why I was going to switch this assembly. And I started looking at it, and I decided I took these things apart, and you can see here's the stock Ender pieces. And what I did, I took, I started noticing I took these little pieces off. First off, the spring that goes on the lever there, it was much weaker on this upgraded piece, so I switched over to the factory spring. I switched this pulley here, and I switched this out because I was comparing them, and you can really tell this has a much smoother feel to it. The factory one has a real raspy feel to it, so you know it's grabbing the filament. And well, I switched it over, then I adjusted everything, make sure it was, you know, at the 50 and 100 mark. I'm getting the right feed. What else did I calibrate? I reset the hot end and making sure that's going to be fine, because it was clogging. And so after I did all that, and it started feeding real well, and lo and behold, here's my box test, and that's the best I've ever gotten out of this off this machine yet. And then there's that calibration cube. Now I still see some artifacts, but like I said, it made a huge difference. It's not printing quite as well as I would like, but holy cow, I mean, what a difference. I finally got some decent prints. Not great. There's a lot of ghosting on this, I could see on the Y, not as much on the X side, but on the Y I can see it. And on this cube you can see the ghosting from the edge going across. So I'll deal with that. But I think at least I'm moving in the right direction, so I guess that'll be it for this video. It took a while of trying a bunch of different stuff and troubleshooting this thing and finally getting some decent prints. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rebuild my whole the whole X gantry here and make it down for design it for a single extruder. I'm going to make it so it'll be a little easier to swap parts out than I need to, and if I decide to go to a Bowden tube, it'll be an easy conversion off this same assembly, right? So yeah, so that's next. I'll show that on the next video, and we'll see if we can really get some good, decent prints off of this. So, all right. Well, that was a tough one. That was just looking at the little increment stuff. I mean, you know, just looking at the components on that made all the difference in the world when I swapped back over. But I guess that the dual feed would probably still be not a bad idea, because they're, you know, what are they, 15 bucks or so, but I can always switch that out. At least now I'm going to move in the right direction. I'm going to rebuild this stuff, make it look good, and start mounting everything. The board here, the box, the power supply. Yeah, I'll just make it look good and make it ergonomic. But yeah, it's kind of a relief finally getting some progress on this. So the next video we'll show it cleaned up with the new X and X gantry and all the pieces where they should be. So, well, we're making progress. So if you have any comments, yeah, let me hear from you. If you've ever dealt with one of these before, let me know what you did. Be sure to like, subscribe, and watch my next video.